As we've already seen several different views and several different looks, there's lots of regulations coming down the pike at us as motor carriers. What I want to do is just take a few minutes to kind of put my cultural spin on these and go through some of the major players and then move over into how you can prepare your company and your culture for this. What my goal, what I strive to do as I go into a motor carrier and begin working with your safety and your management team is I want to earn my place in your culture. I want to be accepted into your culture. I want to be an advocate for your company and your culture and help you move that forward. I enjoy working on the brokerage side, nothing against the carriers, the insurance carriers in the room, but I enjoy this side of it because as I earn that place, as I earn that trust and work hard at it, I then will carry your confidentiality of data and issues with me as if I was an employee of your company or a member of your management team. So that really is rewarding for me, and that's really where I find my most energy as I move through this. I can go pretty much nose to nose with anybody in the country on compliance issues. I enjoy it. It's fun. I know that's twisted, but it is for me. I've done this over 30 years and been through a lot of different situations. But the people side of this business is what really brings me the energy, and I really enjoy it. Electronic logs, I think we all have heard about this, and we pretty much beat it to death. But even though it's been overturned, I think it's a matter of time. I think there will be 100% EOBR regulation coming to this country. And my guess is 3 to 4 years. That's just a really, really rough estimate. It'd be a great question to sit around the table and talk with Greg about because it's going to be pretty interesting how we address the independent contractor model and this requirement. Once it becomes federal law, it's easy, but what I'm really looking at now is there's a lot of motor carriers are adopting to put these in voluntarily. Some even now with independent contractors in their business model. They've tried to write it into the leases. They've run through Greg, and he's reviewed the leases for them. It's, I believe, okay, but I think it'd be a place where it could be challenged before it becomes federal law, personally. The thing about electronic logs, or EBORs as they're called in our business, is it moves the whole stress of hours of service compliance from a audit, find the error, correct the behavior, to more of a proactive time management, driver hours, load scheduling. I think some of the people that have already made the jump, made the decision to make the jump, probably didn't realize how much data there is to really crunch and to own, and how much time stress that puts back into their operations department to really manage those hours and those loads and those times. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's good because it will nearly instantly remove the falsification issue, which is a really high priority item for the federal government and the DOT as they do compliance reviews. I know a lot of the people in this room have already voluntarily gone down this path of adopting them. A lot for CSA scores, some to be ahead of the curve when the regulation happens, and the rest just to remove the stress of that audit fear, of that false log audit fear. The interesting part is those that have adopted it and those that have survived the curve from, and I'm probably behind slides here, I'm not a very big PowerPoint guy. There we go, not that bad. These are going to be real simple compared to the rest of my DAS members. These are going to be pretty high level. But those that have survived the cultural change of putting EOBRs in the trucks or electronic logs, and you don't have to do a show of hands. I won't make you do that and call yourselves out, but most now will not have them taken out of their trucks, those drivers that resisted them. They see that it actually does, though in the statistical terms, reduces industry productivity. It reduces the stress in their life of having to monitor and operate a logbook and make mistakes and then come back around and be given corrective input and behavioral input to try to do better on the paper logs. So anyway, that's my little take on EOBRs. I think they're coming. I think, though productivity may be suffered a bit, I think it will reduce stress. I teach a lot in the classes that I do and in the sessions that I hold that stress is one of the driving factors of accidents, of distracted driving. And we're going to be adding a lot of stress on this industry and its drivers and its managers in the next few years. Now, let's move forward. Medical Examiner's Registry. Having sat in the safety director's seat for a number of years, I was always concerned about the quality and the accuracy and the legality of my medical certificates for my drivers. I had a mostly company driver-based operation, so I was lucky enough I could direct medical examination care. A lot of independent contractor firms have made the choice of a company physician. Greg's left the room to take some calls, apparently. But I think that's probably also thin ice from the independent contractor model, and I think you have to use it very carefully and cautiously. So what the medical examiner rule has done is doing, because it's in the phase-in position right now of training and the website getting up to speed and all the medical examiners going on that site and being trained and tested, it takes that issue away because it becomes a federal regulation. I know we've all seen the medical examinations and the medical certificates over time where you question it and you sure enough, and they put in the registration number of the doctor, that was one fix, and the telephone number of the doctor, but it's all after the fact. It's not up front. This moves it to an upfront kind of situation. Sleep apnea medical guidelines. It's kind of interesting. I think the government is also under a lot of stress in this area, as well as our clients and you folks in the room. Did anybody catch the false start that happened on the sleep apnea guidelines last week? They announced it, and literally within 4 to 6 hours later that afternoon, they yanked it back. They said it was a clerical error. I would really like to hear the inside story of that, and I see a lot of friends and new friends and peers shaking their heads out in the room. I would love to hear the story on that. There's still going to be medical guidelines coming out. They just have pulled back the proposed rule to make sleep apnea an official proposed rulemaking. That's the way I understand it. The medical guidelines have actually essentially become what I call a backdoor regulation. And what's interesting is we're seeing some stresses and I guess, if you will, attention paid to this in the medical examiner community from the clients I work with, where medical examiners are paying attention to those guidelines. They're looking at and asking questions and interviewing drivers during that medical exam process. And I actually had a call just last week from one of our clients down in Wichita, Kansas, and they had a driver who'd been given a 3-month card because of those guidelines, because of that medical examiner. And the driver actually kind of panicked, kind of didn't understand what was going to happen, thought that the medical clinic, the industrial clinic that had examined him and given him a 3-month card was going to refer him to treatment to address this situation. Well, it's not a family physician, it's an industrial clinic. The driver finally came forward to the safety director of this operation. We got Mike Vogel involved, and Mike and I have done a pilot project as well as been involved with the Schneider folks and their sleep apnea management program. Got them to one of the new sleep provider treatment firms, and out of respect, I probably shouldn't really mention it under the antitrust guidelines, but a good firm, and it does a remote sleep test instead of having to go to a sleep lab. Anybody ever dabbled with this, looked at it? And I think it's an amazing thing for the industry. I mean, you move from a $3,400 round number sleep test plus a machine to in the neighborhood of $1,200 to $1,500 for the home sleep test. It will not find neurological apnea. It will find purely obstructive sleep apnea. And I became a guinea pig for this as we did this a couple of years ago with Mike and the True Choices and the health side, because I discovered I had sleep apnea and went the conventional way. Thank goodness for health insurance that covered most of that. And when I did the beta test for this sleep test, it nailed it. I mean, it found exactly the levels of apnea, the pressures, the whole deal. And personally, having tried to figure out what was wrong with me and why I was tired and why I was grumpy and why it was affecting my family and my life and my marriage, I feel amazing. It's just amazing. So if we can get these things, the sleep apnea things, away from the fear and into more of a reasonable cost mainstream without the legal fears of the motor carriers and the litigation community of have you treated, have you not, was he not, is he not, I think it'll be a huge benefit and a good thing for our industry and for our drivers. Medical certificate on the CDL, here's one that I really love talking about. This is one of those things that I think the federal government, and I hope none of you have friends, family, or people within the federal government, because this is a little bit of a blunt comment, if you will, and I've added this. This is not in the slide. I understand that we are frustrated as an industry reviewing scores and scores of CSA scores for our clients, that we have still a large degree of no medical card in possession violations flowing through the CSA system. Culturally, I find that challenging because I carry a medical card. I'm blessed to be able to maintain my qualifications and play with trucks when I get a chance to. I know where mine is right now, standing here right now, this second. And I think someone in Washington, in an effort to do the right thing, said, well, we'll fix that. We'll emulate some of the other states in the nation that have them attached to the CDL. We'll make it a federal mandate. We'll attach it to the CDL. In my opinion, strictly my opinion, we just added another layer of issues for the motor carriers and the administrators of those safety programs to watch for as they monitor their driver qualifications and their files. Now we're going to have to get a receipt back to prove that they went to the DMV to get it attached. And again, DMV-wise, motor vehicle license-wise, there's very few states in this union that are really prepared. And in some of the most recent newsletters, for those of you who get it, I attached a link to show you that list of the state DMV administrators and some of the methods of communication and their statuses and their contact information. And I know for a fact down where I'm from, Kansas and Missouri, they both said, we're not ready yet. The computers and the people won't stand it. Imagine this same guy with a 3-month card that's gone in and he's done what he's supposed to do. Now he's in the process of treatment. I don't think the 3-month card is going to catch up into the system and be valid on that CDL when this is fully activated in 14. This is in a phase-in process now before that guy's 3-month card expires. I think they've bit off way more than they can chew in trying to blend this into the state DMVs and the state processes. Anyway, that's a little bit on medical certification on the CDL. I think it's going to be quite a challenge, and we've just added another layer for all of the motor carriers and their safety departments in the room. CSA, thanks to Roger for bringing up the blend of these scores. From what I hear, and Greg's probably got a lot better ramp, and Todd and some of the guys, but I hear this was pretty strong flatbed lobbying in DC. And you know, actually I kind of agree with that because it was unfair. You know, the dry van can be rolling down the road with something in it that's probably more dangerous essentially to the stability of that truck than necessarily the flatbed with 9 chains on a roll of coil steel, but they couldn't see it. And they got picked on because they could see it. And I've got a lot of platform people in this room and a lot of friends that are platform people as well. The preview site is kind of weird, and like Greg said, I think they're getting kind of goosey about whether their methodology's right. We did a little bit of a test, and I've earned my place on several clients' cultures to where I get to share some of that data if I call and check with them. And we did a preview on a small company and independent contractor mixed motor carrier that had a vehicle maintenance score that was below alert, but had a cargo score that was significantly above alert. In the preview site, theirs went under alert under the new proposed methodology. Pretty amazing. We turned around and went to a larger client who has also a mix of company and independent contractors, platform carrier again. They were slightly over vehicle maintenance alert, and only slightly over cargo securement. Theirs went up about 1.5 points in the percentage when they ran the methodology and the test against it. So it's going to be kind of interesting. It's interesting to hear Greg say it's going to be pushed out because they don't think they've got the methodology right, the math right, the computers right. But my battle cry, my mantra on CSA has been since I've arrived here on the team of True North is no violation inspections. You've really got to focus on no violation inspections. If you get a violation onto your score, and I won't even go down the path of the driver history records, though they're being created, and it dumps back out in the PSPs of the drivers you're bringing onto your teams. The no violation inspection is if it gets there it is. I'm sorry, I lost that for a second. If it gets on your score, the methodology is slow and painful for those to be reduced and finally reduce your scores and your final percentages. Now, let's move on into the heart of this and kind of roll through this pretty fast because I'm going to make up some time here. It's really, really fun slot being right behind Mr. Fury and right before lunch, but we can handle it. Just teasing. Jason's grinning. That's good. I'm glad he's grinning instead of frowning. Where, as I said as I introduced myself, where I really find the energy and the really enjoyment of doing this is helping a motor carrier with their culture. And what, as Jason introduced me, the best way, in my opinion, to prepare for these changes is to try to move your culture to one of acceptance versus resistance. Because what happens is, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, and I got some examples. If we constantly, as a company, as a motor carrier, or even me as an insurer, coming in saying they, the federal government, or management, or it's the classic, well, safety says we got to do this, so we're doing this. Or safety says, well, management says you got to get the load there. That's kind of old with the EOBRs now, but that classic conflict, it's the almost good versus evil, right versus long, safety versus operations. We've got to close that gap. We've got to avoid those kind of terms and terminology with our drivers, because that gap, if you will, that weakness in your culture will give the drivers that opportunity then to do the old play one against the other. If mom says no, go ask dad, the classic scenario. Here's some examples of what I think denotes a strong safety culture and one of acceptance. How many, and I'm probably going to ask for a show of hands here, so if you don't feel like raising your hand, don't. How many have adopted EOBRs voluntarily? I'm glad they did. Okay. How many had a cell phone texting company policy, even for independent contractors, before it was federally regulated? See? Strong safety culture, in my opinion. Not that is not, but that's one of acceptance and strength. Do you use a company doctor, and even though it might potentially violate the independent contractor model of control? Most do, some try to. Here's really the heart of where I want to go. Field level education and training, as it says there on the slide. We have taken this culture of acceptance and closing the gap between safety and operations into the dispatch and operations groups. We bring them together for meetings in one carrier that's going to be used as my example once a quarter, and we're trying to build some of those meetings out in some of the other motor carriers that I'm starting to work with. We've got to get things scheduled, we've got to get moving. What we do is we bring those groups together, and actually it goes beyond operations and just management into any person that can touch or communicate with a driver, telephonically or in person or even electronically over the email. It really is designed to be a total company safety effort. Instead of they, them, the feds, management, the dispatchers and the fleet managers are then empowered to say, we are doing this as a company. This is something we are doing for the benefit of your safety, of the public safety, of our ability to service our customers. The client I'm going to use as an example with this is close to 3 years ago now, we started a process of quarterly operations safety meetings. In those meetings, we structure them with updates on losses, frequencies, and high-level reserves. We don't go into a lot of detail. We don't want to violate any company confidentiality. It's all approved by ownership and management. We give them some motivation on core values of driving safely, because they are the front line of your safety culture. They're on the phones and on the dispatch systems and communicating with those drivers every day. Them being included in these sessions and these meetings, they have then buy-in. They feel a part of the system, a part of the operation, a part of the safety program. The other cool part about this is management listens and values their input, and changes and directions are made, and directions are made through these sessions. They have then tools to go use in that daily interaction to make sure the drivers are compliant and safe. It's matured. It used to be kind of, okay, we'll come because we were told to. And now it's really interesting, as I've been adopted and embraced by their culture, is now when I show up, they say, you in for the meetings? And they're excited. and they understand that they're a part of the process, and they feel that value, and it's building and growing. Losses are reducing. CSA scores are all under alert. It's an over 300 unit company-driven van carrier hauling just-in-time car parts with a slip seat power unit operation. That's amazing to me. That's absolutely amazing. Are they doing everything? Are they adopting all of the things that I've talked about, all the regulatory stresses that are coming down the road voluntarily? No. But they're prepared for them culturally because they are now operating as a unit, as a group, instead of this gap or instead of this stress. There is buy-in through the organization, and as I said, the results are amazing. I'd ask you to think about this. If you're able, and if it works into your business plan, consider adopting some of these regulations in advance of being told to. At least consider bringing your groups together and building the understanding and the education to prepare them for these changes, even if you don't adopt them in advance voluntarily. It will bring you great, great results and benefits when the regulations finally become law. Another thing I want to leave you with, as I think we all agree, compliance is only a small part of the overall safety effort of our program. We've talked a lot about compliance today, and I think we've got to keep our focus on compliance is not a good safety program, it's only a component of a good safety program. What we're really trying to do is enable and empower and give the drivers the tools and education necessary to safely navigate their routes and service our customers and deliver their freight and come home safely to enjoy their families and their lives and what they choose to do in their free time. I believe the culture of acceptance and one of compliance will help free up that time for your fleet operations and driver communication staff to work more on that true core value of the safety and the well-being of our professional drivers across this land, make our highways safer, make our system efficient, and ultimately free up your time to make sure that we work safely and have success as an industry. I like to close all these styles of meetings with kind of a 3 simple word mantra that I use in all my operations and safety meetings. Those words, and they're not on the slides, I put these in kind of at the last minute. I thought it appropriate when I started kind of hearing where we were going really strongly down the regulatory and legal path. I wanted to bring it more around to the people side. The 3 words are safely, on time, and in compliance. First of all, if we don't deliver the freight safely and intact, the same condition that we were given custody of it, nothing else really matters in the rest of the equation, does it? An old joke I used in the orientations when I was a safety director for a refrigerated company is it's a really bad call to have to make to a shipper or a receiver, say, we almost made it, we'll be right there with your stuff as soon as we find a bobcat in a dump truck. So safety has got to be on the front end of the equation. If we don't do it safely, nothing else matters. Safely comes after that is on time. We can do safely and on time with the same system. It has to be. You can be safe as a world, but if you don't get it there on time, you need to look at your system, you need to adjust it. And CSA has brought us into the world of in compliance. We now have to do all these things and maintain compliance with the regulations and the CSA scores and the stresses that are being brought upon us by those being reviewed by shippers, by other carriers, and by insurance companies. So I'll leave you with these thoughts. We can do this, we can move forward as an industry, but safely, on time, and in compliance is the battle cry to be able to support your drivers and be a safe motor carrier. I will entertain any questions if you'd like. Glad to do that. We've chatted a lot after hours and in between times. I almost made up time. I went over a little bit. I was worried that I'd be able to fill 30 minutes with this, but obviously that worked out okay. Any questions, thoughts, comments? Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being here.